What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. It's time for episode 39 of Tigers Franchise. When I last left y'all, we were being dismissed from the playoffs by the Yankees in 6 games, a hard-fought series. Who knew Will Banfield was the best player ever? I certainly didn't. I think he went on to hit like 169 in the ALCS as the Yankees lost in 7. The Dodgers defeated the Reds in 7 on the other side. And then the Dodgers, were dumped 4-1 by the Mariners. So the Seattle Mariners are your 2027 World Series champions. Don't forget, we faced them last year. We knew this is a good team. Not surprised to see them get back. They worked their way out of the wild card. They 3-0'd Baltimore, 4-2 against Minnesota. Then, like I said, 7 against the Yankees and just 5 against the Dodgers. So congrats to them. And we are back to the drawing board. Got a nice little checklist here because while I'm not all the way through the offseason, I did get a decent bit done here as we stand on the brink, or actually just after free agency has started. So it would be wrong to say it was on the brink. But let's get into the awards. First things first, we did win one, which was kind of cool. Actually, we won 2, but we got a Gold Glove from Riley Green. I'm forgetting where the awards are. Why am I failing that right now? Oh, I found it. Awards. American League Gold Glove. We got Mr. Riley Green, right field Gold Glove, his first. Sweet. Love to see that. Oh, and then I'm going to skip. I'm skipping around here a little bit because I got to go to our win. We got Reliever of the Year, Elpidio Perez. Good for him. 9-6 with 13 saves, 2.85 ERA, 2.3 WAR. You know we're piling up the innings. We love to do that. And so Perez did get it. You know, it's interesting to see him win it because I talk about how often my confidence in him when I'm playing out the games is a little bit shaky. We see all the meltdowns from both him and Emiliano Teodo, and it's like, are they superstars? Are they badass relievers? I guess the answer for Elpidio Perez is yes. Elsewhere, we finished, Teodo finished 5th in reliever of the year. Ronnie Enriquez was 4th in the Cy Young. Tariq Skubal was 8th. Corbin Burns won his 2nd. Spencer Torkelson was 12th in MVP. J-Rod won it. Carter was 13th, and Green was 14th. So we had three guys, but they were very much down ballot. I did like that they were in a row, 12, 13, 14. That was kind of cool. But yeah, so J-Rod, MVP, Corbin Burns, Cy Young. Doug Cloud was Rookie of the Year for Boston. He is a gap god. He was the number 5 overall pick in the 2026 draft. 30th ranked prospect. Great speed profile, nice defense. So a lot of avenues for him to be successful. 126 runs scored and 341 batting average. Both led the league in a 7.5 win season for Doug Cloud. So he's kind of a stud. In the National League, it was Elly De La Cruz winning the MVP. 326, 384, 605 with 41 homers, 8 wins, 28 steals as well. Just an excellent season. Huge fantasy year. 128 runs, led the National League. And then Chase Petty won a 2nd straight Cy Young. He has become an absolute stud for them, with a 3.02 ERA last year, 2.67 this year, while pitching in Cincinnati, y'all. And it's because he's got a 70 movement, which really mitigates the big threat of playing in Cincinnati, which are the home runs. He just undercuts those. 0.6 led the league this past year. 0.5 the year before did not lead the league, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, he's been about a half homer per 9 over the last 2 years. That's going to breed a lot of success in Cincinnati. Gabriel Araujo won the Rookie of the Year in the National League. He's a left fielder, played 106 games. Definitely not on the same level of Rookie of the Year in the American League. Good player, don't get me wrong, has some upside, 70 power with the chance to get up to 80. So he blasted 28 bombs, but not kind of the foundational game changer that Doug Cloud was with his 8-win season. So we'll see where Araujo goes. He's kind of a DH with some mediocre corner defense, but that power profile, that will play. And then Nathaniel Heredia was reliever of the year for the Mets. 95 stuff, 70 movement, 35 control. Kind of got that Abner Uribe sort of build where if you can keep the walks in check at all, or live with them really, because it's going to be hard to really mitigate them. And he was down to a 13% rate, which is funny to say down to, but he had 15-16% the year before. So he brought it down to 13. He put up a 0.97 ERA and a 0.87 whip. That's insane. And that is living with those walks because he was so difficult to hit. He had a 209 BABIP. I mean, that's, 3.3 hits per 9. Dude's impossible. He's an absolute stud. They only got 65 innings out of him, but it was in 45 appearances. So they are letting him go multi-innings, which I do respect there from the Mets. So there's the awards. Now, let's set up the offseason here a bit. And I do have to apologize. I kind of messed up on something again. I said that there would be a team review. And we can kind of do it, but we're here on November 30th. I got a lot of guys that are no longer here that I'm gonna get into, and so it's hard to do a full team review. I guess we'll be kind of reviewing those guys on their way out, so it won't be that normal setup where I just go into the offense and I go position by position, talk about how everyone did, then I go to the pitching and do it. It's going to kind of be in the midst of discussing a bunch of moves because a lot has happened, even though free agency hasn't even really gotten going. So coming into the offseason, we had an average fan base size, above average loyalty, and a 74 fan interest at the start of the offseason. It is now up to 77 because a lot has happened. When I first clicked on, you hit the button after the World Series ends, it shifts to the offseason, you get a bunch of emails and all that. When I went to click the money at that point, we were at minus 16 million. Now I know a lot of that is, hey, all the dust has to settle from arbitration, free agents, etc. But the picture was bleak, y'all. We did not have a lot of money, and Chris Ilitch thought it would be cute to take money from us. And he was saying, we're going to bring this number down. I don't know why he thought that was a good idea, but that's what he did. Brought it down to 160. Although if I'm being honest, I can't remember what we were at last year, so maybe I'm full of crap. Let me see. We do still have the email, right? Yep, it'll be early November. New budget was 150. Oh, it went up 10 mil. I stand corrected. I will say this. It's still not enough for the team that we had. That's the general point, okay? But I don't want to besmirch the good name of Chris Ilitch. Although I was more partial to his father, Mike Ilitch, who ran the team like somebody who wanted to win, not so much like, a penny pinching business. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Either way, 160 mil was not going to be able to sustain the team that we had. And that was evident even when you kind of factor in some of the free agents and the dust that would settle. And I didn't go through and meticulously do it, but even kind of eyeballing it, I was like, it's still not going to be much money if it is even positive from that minus 16 mil. So I figured we gotta kind of remake the team a bit. We got a lot of moves to do. First with the personnel, this was the worst. Glenn O'Donnell retired. And when I saw that we had the old Detroit staffer retires, I think it says retirement in the email, right? Let me see here. Yeah, I thought I would have bet every nickel I had that it was Rick Jameson because it usually is around this time. You got 4 or 5 years in, he retires. Okay, that would have stunk, but we could have fixed it. But no, I click on it and it's Glenn O'Donnell, our scouting director. And I've always been bummed about how it treats that because it takes all the scouting away. You have to start back from scratch. Now, on some level, I understand that if your head guy left, there would be a knowledge drain of some sort, especially if he was awesome and took a bunch of people with him to a new job or something. Sure, I get that. But I really think that there should be some diversity to the way this is handled based on how the guy goes away from your team. Because there are multiple ways, right? They can retire, they can get a different job, or they can be fired. And I think depending on what that is should kind of decide how much scouting your team still has when you go to make the new hire. For example, if they retire, I don't really think you should lose much of anything. Maybe some of the guys with very high go down to high, or maybe even everybody. You can drop it a level. Everyone goes from the very high scouting to the high. Okay, that's a little work to kind of get back to very high if you're like me and always want it to be at that blue level. But if not, you can live with that. If they go get a new job, maybe half drop down to high and half drop down to average, right? Because the idea that they go to a new job, maybe they take 3 or 4 key people with them from the front office. Okay, cool. And then if you fire them, you should lose most of it. Most guys should go down to low or average. That would be okay. I would understand because you're firing that guy. That said, I think it'd be cool if they implemented a way to kind of get back to not square one, to get back to even easier. So when you hire the new guy, he brings on a certain amount of scouting that you don't have to go do new reports for everybody. He already kind of has a basis, or you can kind of buy your way up to the high, very high level via your budget or something. But just starting from scratch and having to go back through everybody is a pain in the butt, and it's not enough time to get to everything because you want to scout your minor leaguers in case you have to make trades. You want to scout guys who might be free agents or in arbitration to make sure that you are giving them the right amount of money. Any free agents that are coming over from the international market, the international amateur that's its own separate thing. Never mind on that. But then the major league free agents, it's just hard to get everything. So I hope they fix that. I actually did reach out to the devs after this and say, hey, should it really go all the way to 0? And the guy I was talking with, he did say, I don't think it should necessarily be like that. So he's going to look into it, see what's what. I can't promise anything, y'all. They're working their butts off on 25 right now. They don't have time to go chase every little thing. But he did seem to believe that was a bit of a fundamental issue that could be enhanced. So stay tuned on that. We'll see if anything changes. But anyway, Glenn O'Donnell retired. I hired Rick Hahn. Now, I know Rick Hahn's reputation has gone down a bit as everything has fizzled out in Cleveland. But in the game, he still has a pretty good reputation. So, we don't have to worry so much about exactly what he's looked at like in real life. Is that the right phrase? Anyway, how he's perceived in real life. Because he's got good on the major leagues, excellent on the minors, outstanding on the international, and excellent on amateurs, and of course, highly favors tools. I say of course because that's just what I prefer. You may have had success with something else and that's what you prefer. I'm totally fine with that. I've explained kind of the differences on how I feel between the two before, so I won't bore y'all with that, but I'm big on highly favors tools. So we also had Nate Fryman come in as our A manager. We didn't lose a lot of personnel. That was really the only move we had to make. But then a little bit down the road, a couple weeks into the offseason, Scott Harris told us that he was being pursued. Now, I can't tell. It looks like Rick Hahn last worked in 2023 with the White Sox. So he wasn't there. So I can't tell because the history would still be here. So I thought for a second that Scott Harris was going to replace Rick Hahn because he went to the White Sox. But no, they had already moved on there. So we didn't have to worry about that aspect of it. It would have been kind of funny, though, if our assistant GM went to go be the full GM over in Chicago and then their GM came over to be our AGM. But anyway, we got Rick Hahn, or as a scouting director, I should say, not an AGM for Rick Hahn. We've given him a different role, but I really like what's going on here. And Scott Harris, we don't need an AGM. It's really fine. I don't mind it. So I'm leaving that vacant right now. So the moves began early and they've continued. It's been an early and often situation over these last 2 months here, the rest of October and all of November. So maybe more of a month and a half, right? When exactly did the season end? We got the budget email on, actually just this month. Yeah. New budget on November 7th. So it's really been a 3-week run that I ended up doing quite a bit. And it kind of just started coming together, if I'm being honest. Now, this wasn't one of these things where I went too far and then, now I have to make up a video to catch up. I always wanted to kind of get to this free agent point and start from here. So I feel good. The only thing I wish I would have done was maybe like pre-record something where I was reviewing the team, have that in, and then before I started to dismantle it a little bit, we could have had that to be its normal thing, but that's okay. I don't even know where you guys are at on those off-season reviews and if they're that necessary. Plus, I didn't get rid of everybody. I don't want to overstate this. But let's finally get into it. What have we done? First things first, immediately after the season, I just kind of have an instinct. Whenever I get in the game, first thing I do is I hit F2 because it goes to the waiver wire. So wherever I am, as I'm getting back into it, I want to catch up and see what's up on the waiver wire. Now, on November 30th, you're not going to find too much. But at the very end of the season, you find a bunch of guys because teams are shuffling. Or not even at the end of the season, at the beginning of the offseason. Once that calendar flips, a bunch of guys get waived. And I kind of had a field day with it, y'all. And you're going to see some interesting players here that are coming in. First one was from Toronto, Miguel Guerrero, 27 years old, coming off a really tough season. This is the standard that you see a lot in baseball, where a reliever who's highly skilled, had some rough issues in a small sample and kind of gets moved on from, because it's a numbers game. Maybe the team has lost faith. They go pick up somewhere else and they cook. I'm not even going to name examples like this because go look at, I don't know, every reliever. It is so common that I don't even feel like I have to come up with a bunch of examples for it. So this was that, though. A 27-year-old, we see him. Our guy likes him a bit more than OSA. Rick Hahn likes him a bit more. And so we're out there saying, hey, we see 70, 55, 50 with the chance for a bit more control, 40 stamina. We'll take the shot here. Toronto, you maybe should have worked to keep him. We will take Miguel Guerrero. Then we got Jonathan Almonte from Arizona. He's a 65, 50, 55 with 35 stamina. He's a bullpen guy right now, and that's fine. But if we could squeeze out 5 more stamina, maybe. But I'll take him as a multi-inning reliever right now. OSA did like him a bit more, and when I picked him up, all I had was OSA. That's just a risk I had to take, though, because he was 65, 55, 55 with OSA, and I'm like, ooh, we got to get this guy. Turns out he's a little bit worse once Rick Hahn gives a report on him, but I'm okay with it. And this also fits that same criteria. 27-year-old, bad season with his team. They've kind of moved on. Maybe they're moving on a bit prematurely. And then the third one, we got 3 pitchers from this. Odaner Mosqueda, welcome back. Our guy who we traded to Seattle in that big kind of it was a talent dump. I didn't want to get nothing for a bunch of these guys, namely Mosqueda and Young. So I threw in a handful of other guys, and we got money. We literally sold those players, which wasn't great, but I didn't want to lose them, and nobody was really offering any players, so I took a few bucks for it. Jace Young, by the way, for the World Series champions, he now has back-to-back World Series, hit 21 homers, had a 90 WRC plus 1.1 WAR. Certainly don't regret moving on from him. He clearly had the big 2025. It was awesome, and he's just not that guy, and that's okay. But anyway, Mosqueda over in Seattle, he was good. 2.61 ERA, 1.16 WHIP, but he only spent 20 2/3 in the majors. It was 40 2/3 in the minors, and so they didn't really view him as a piece of their roster, obviously. So I figured we'll bring him back. He's a lefty. He might not last with us, but at the very least, let's get the talent back in the organization and see what's what. So we got 3 pitchers immediately. The main reason I did this was because I realized, did you guys hear that weird noise my throat made when I was talking there? That was weird. Anyway, the main reason I did this was I knew we had to make some moves with some pitchers because their price tags were just getting too high for what we can afford. They're not overpriced in that they deliver enough value for their cost. It's just that we can get it elsewhere. And what do I always talk about? Building a bullpen off of the waiver wire and through Rule 5 and in pickups in trades, buying low type stuff. You can build a bullpen. This was that same idea. Go get 3 guys off waivers who are all pretty cheap and move on from some guys whose price tags are going up, because even though they're not unfair, we just can't afford bullpen luxuries at a high price. So the first trade was a biggie, y'all. And I was kind of looking, I kind of hinted at trading this guy during the playoffs. Part of it was frustration, but part of it was I knew the price was going to go up, and I was worried that maybe we wouldn't be able to afford reliever of the year, Elpidio Perez. He's gone, folks. And we got a guy that we just faced in the playoffs, CJ Weens from the Yankees. 75, 65, 40 control with 45 stamina. Right now I've got him in the rotation. I think this stuff and movement might be enough to overcome the control, especially if we keep him in that 4 to 5 inning range. We've done it with Ronnie Enriquez. I think CJ Weens can find success, and he's got even higher upside with the stuff and movement, that if he can figure out an extra 5 control or something, it could be next level. He's only 27 still, which isn't young, but it's still young enough to develop, especially as we move roles for him. So I love his pitch arsenal, the 80 slider, the 75 changeup, 65 sinker, and 60 circle change. Awesome. So we got Weens and Chris Allen, a prospect of some acclaim. Chris Allen here is kind of a gap contact sort of profile, has 20 home run power with 35 upside, 25 I with 40 upside. So those two pieces aren't a part of his game, but everything else is projected to be 65 or better. 65 contact, 90 gap, and 75 avoid K, with solid defense too. He can play all 3 positions, high adaptability, work ethic, and intelligence. Just a lot to like here from the 2026 second round pick. I think we kind of caught the Yankees moving on a little early here, but we gave them something, right? And you got to give to get. So not only did we give Elpidio Perez, but we also gave Gabriel Arias, who was our utility infielder this past year, put up 383 plate appearances of an 85 WRC plus, so not great. And his defense didn't really stand out as much as it would need to kind of maximize his value there. So he was just worth about a win, 0.8. We'll call it one WAR there. And I did still like him, but the bottom line was, y'all, his price tag was going up to $6 million. And that is more than fair for a 1-win super utility infield, or not even super utility. For me, a super utility, it's semantics, but super utility is somebody who plays like every day, kind of like a Ben Zobrist, whereas a utility guy is just that backup who maybe plays more of like 3-4 times a week. So Arias is a utility guy, and $6 million, that's fair. That's fair, but we need the money for the big dogs. And we're going to get into some big dogs that have seen their prices rise too. So I thought this was a really nice trade for us here. Weens is in a good or excellent relationship status with the manager, bullpen coach, and the pitching coach. So you really like that. Perez and Arias were looking at $6 million apiece. Elpidio ended up getting $6.5 million. So that's $12.5 million right there. And I just felt with Weens making league min and Allen a prospect, that's a move we had to make. We basically shaved $12 million off because Weens is only going to make a bit over $500,000. So good luck to Elpidio Perez. I'm curious if they're going to use him in the bullpen still or look to move him into a starter's role, because he does have 70, 65, 55. And if you move him to starter, it's 65, 60, 55, but with 35 stamina. So that's really the key. But we wish him luck. We do. As frustrating as he can be at times, I'd be fine if he does well, as long as it's not against us in the playoffs. Then we continued to kind of move out some relievers that were going to make a few bucks, especially because we brought in those 3. So we moved a waiver guy that we had brought in earlier, Alex Scherf. We brought him in mid-season. We paired him with Carlos Vargas. Scherf, I don't think, is making much. Yeah, he's making 1.4. That's nothing too crazy. But we paired him with Carlos Vargas, who's making 1.5. So about $3 million here for 2 quality arms. But the bottom line is we kind of wanted to cut their prices in half and take a couple league minimum guys just to save every nickel that we could, especially because I think I can replicate both of these guys at league minimum prices. So we paired those 2 for a little bit of a reclamation project. Justin Crawford, a prospect that doesn't jump off the page. I'm not sitting here like, yo, guys, we stole this. He's like 45s and 50s on his offensive profile, good speed profile, and strong defense with 65 range in the outfield. So he can play all 3 positions. But he's been stuck at high A for 3 years. He broke his kneecap. He's actually still recovering from that for 3 months. So it's a buy low on a 23-year-old. He's going to be 24 very soon by the time he recovers. So call him a 24-year-old. Can we get something, right? Can we turn him into somebody who's a 4th outfielder? Maybe. We didn't need those 2 relievers. They were both waiver pickups, right? Wasn't Vargas off the waivers for us? Vargas, Rule 5. Same diff. That's just more of a, event-based waiver is what the Rule 5 draft is. It's like taking a waiver pickup and making it an event called the Rule 5 draft. There's a different stipulations, but for the most part, it's very similar. So those two for Crawford, buying low on Crawford, getting a couple mil off the books. Then, we're not done yet. We got two more. We called back up the Yankees. And I don't love trading twice with a team in the same offseason. I'm sure there's some precedent. It's probably happened. Teams build up relationships. There's a reason that you will see certain teams trade a bunch. They've got a good relationship. The two GMs understand that you're going to have to give to get. We're going to get good deals done. We're happy to do it. You know, Milwaukee and Tampa Bay, they're trading all the time. I don't know why I can't come up with another one, but there's plenty of them where you can tell the two GMs have a relationship, especially when you see a GM move from one team to another, and then that new team starts to trade with the one that his last team did. Then you know that that's just a good GM relationship. So, hey, Cash and I, we get along apparently. Who knows? Let's make sure he's even still their GM. He is not. Jeffrey Tomlinson, old G Tom, as I call him, because we're such good friends. He's from Texas. I live in Texas. He's from Arlington, Texas. So we're just buddies, old G Tom and I. So I called him back up. I said, hey, you had brought up some other players when we were talking during our last deal. Are you still interested in them? And he said, who is this? And I said, it's me. And he said, I don't know you by voice. Who the fuck are you? I said, sorry, it's Paul Sporer from the Tigers. Oh, okay. And he sounded really annoyed. So then I knew, I was like, okay, this is going to be tough to get a deal done. Don't have to be so rude. I probably should have just texted him. But anyway, I knew that they still liked some players because I was working through that Weens deal a bit. I'd seen some players from the Make This Work Now, including some guys I wanted to get off the books. So I called them back and I said, what do you think about Dylan Dingler? I know you've got the greatest catcher in the history of baseball in Will Banfield, but can I interest you in a little Dylan Dingler and make them a little combo? For some reason, they said yes. They were interested. Now, look, I do like to hang on to the original Tigers as much as I can. My buddy P.F. Holden talks about that in his sim, and I totally agree. We are fully aligned there. You try to keep some of that core together. And I like Dylan Dingler, and I do believe he can become a solid catcher for the Tigers here as early as this year in real life, 2024. But we don't need to bend over backwards to keep him. You know, we're keeping Torque, we're keeping Green, we got Scooble, Job, Manning's been around. Is Matt Manning still with us? Why am I blanking on whether or not we still have Matt Manning? We don't, right? Or is he in AAA? Bad example, because I don't think we have him anymore. Anyway, you get the point. But Dylan Dingler was somebody I thought we could move. So I said, hey, what do you want, G Tom? He said, stop calling me G Tom or I'm going to hang up right now. So I shaped up real quick, started kissing his ass a little bit because I was intimidated. So I said, okay, I'll give you Dylan Dingler, Sal Frelick, Brendan Wright, Jeremy De La Rosa, and Chris Bubich. What can I get back? And he said, how about Jose Shambuco, who we were looking at in that Weens trade. I wasn't sure Elpidio and Arias were going to get us Weens, and I would have settled for Shambuco. Instead, we get Shambuco in this deal, who, by the way, I look at, he's good, he's interesting. We're shifting him to starter in AAA, but Weens is way better. So I'm glad we ended up getting the Weens deal done with Perez and Arias. But anyway, this is a bit of a quantity for quality. Well, I don't even want to say that this is like huge quality. We didn't get some ace for a bunch of pieces, but we did kind of cut some of the chaff with it. And I will be honest, Brendan White and Jeremy De La Rosa did not move the needle on the trade. I just included them because they were going to get cut anyway. And I like feeling like I got something. I don't know. It's a stupid thing, but like, you take these two players too, so that way they're part of this trade instead of just kind of floating off and becoming free agents. So we traded all those guys. It's really Dingler, Frelick for Shambuco and a prospect named Eric Cagle. Eric Cagle was drafted in the third round of 2027. So just this past year out of Texas Tech. And let's see here. He is, well, let me go back to his profile here. I hit the back button one time. It went all the way back to Dylan Dingler. I don't understand that sometimes. That's so weird to me. But anyway, he's another kind of contact type guy, gap profile, although his avoid K isn't even that good. He's kind of an okay bat profile with some decent defense, 55-60, 65-55 for his read. Can play second, third, and short. Good profile with high leader, loyalty, and work ethic. He does have high financial ambition too, but that's fine. So he's also durable. So we got those two. Shambuko's the prize for me. I think he's an interesting pitcher. I think I mentioned him when we were playing the Yankees, that I got him in one of our series. I think it was the Arizona one. I think that's what I settled on, or the Cincinnati. I still can't remember, but he was awesome. He was really, really good, and I'm willing to take a shot on him again. So we got that deal done. They liked our guys. I don't think we ripped them off. The only cheesy thing here is that we did 2 big deals with the same team about a week apart. And I don't think that would necessarily happen. But Dingler is still a decent catcher. You know, he's an excellent catcher. He's an okay to below okay hitter. He's not an okay hitter. He's a poor hitter. But Sal Frelick, he didn't do anything for us in 59 plate appearances, but he's a solid, at least utility type outfielder, backing everybody up. But you can start him in a corner as well. He still has high work ethic. He's 27 years old, and he can hit a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did better with the Yankees. Even if we had kept him, he wasn't going to put up a 28 WRC plus again, so I wasn't worried about that. And then just to show you what these guys look like, Brendan White, 45, 65, 60. He's kind of whatever. They're going to start him. Are they going to start him in the majors? Oh, no, he's a free agent. So they got rid of him too. And that's fine. That's fine. Better them than us for some reason. And then Jeremy De La Rosa, also a free agent. So they took those guys. They're like, I guess we'll take them. We're just going to cut them. And I was like, okay, no, but you take them. I don't want to cut them. I guess I'm just nervous about cutting players. You know, I feel bad. And then Chris Bubich they got as well, who, like, I don't know, actually he was the final piece in this deal. They did want him. He's at 45, 55, 55. He's going to be in, A-ball right now. I imagine they'll move him up higher than that, but he should be like a AAA type guy. Remember, he was Rule 5'd off our team and then given back to us after about 49 innings from the Cubs. But they liked him enough to, like, he was the finishing piece of the deal. So then we made one more deal, and I was in this place before ARB was done where I could do trades that were in the shop, but if I went out and tried to seek a player, it kept saying we couldn't afford to take on the contracts, no matter what I was doing. Even if I was making them eat everything and trading a bunch of our money, it was pissing me off is what it was doing. But I could go in here, trade for player, and it just wouldn't let it happen. So I waited until everything settled on the arbitration and we were kind of moved on to that next level. And then I wanted to go out and look for somebody up the middle because Willy Adames is a free agent. I didn't mention that earlier, but he's our only big free agent this year. Our only real, I say our only big as if there were a few small ones. He's our only free agent this year that we're losing off the Major League club, but that's a pretty big deal. Now we can move Brooks Lee to short, but we still would need a second baseman either way, right? And that does bring up the case of like, well, maybe you could have just kept Arias and put him there. I agree. Could have definitely done that. But I had my eyes set on something bigger, or at least I think it's bigger. So I called up the Dodgers. Y'all, we were just dealing with the big boys. We're sitting at the big boy table now. We'll call the Yankees. We'll call the Dodgers. You know, top teams in the league. Hey, you trade with us now. So we call up the 102-win Dodgers coming off of their World Series loss. We say, hey, that's tough. We got ousted as well. You want to swing a deal? What do you like from our club? They had their eyes set on one player in particular, and that was Derek Curiel, who is a prospect outfielder that I feel like was probably going to make our team if we had kept him around. He's coming off an okay season at AAA. He didn't hit 78 WRC plus, but still put up 2.1 WAR thanks to premium defense, right? Basically, he could render Parker Meadows unnecessary for us. 70 range, 65 air, 60 arm, decent speed profile. Now, Meadows is better, but Meadows' price was kind of moving up too. And so there was a world where I was like, well, we got to move on from Meadows and just go with Curiel. But I figured the $2.5 million for Meadows, after I moved all the other money around, I could afford that. So we do have Meadows still, as you can see. But we moved Curiel, and okay, you want him, we want somebody. And we want to get a big middle infield prospect type. and I landed on a guy named Wilman Diaz. And so let's take a look here at Wilman Diaz. Just turned 24 a couple weeks ago. Happy birthday, buddy. Coming off of a little sample with the Dodgers, 138 plate appearances, just a 59 WRC plus, minus .1 WAR. It didn't go well, right? Who cares? It's a month plus sample that didn't go all that well. I do not care. Now, I will say his last couple seasons have not been great, even in the minors. 2027, this past year in AAA, 89 WRC plus, 2.1 WAR. Back in 2026 in A and high A, 86 and 83 WRC plus totals, respectively. So he hasn't been exactly going crazy. He's not some big top 100 type prospect. We're not going in there and just robbing him blind, but we're trying to get a guy that we think could be something for us. I love the 65 range, right? That's kind of my baseline that I was looking for our next shortstop, now that we were losing Adames. So he met that, and I thought there's enough here in the bat that if we do get a situation where our coaches like him, maybe they could coach him up, because he still has +5 potential on his gap power, his eye, and his avoid K. And if all three of those came in, now you got yourself a little like 110 WRC plus type hitter. We did have to include some other pieces. It was kind of the mix and match. They either wanted like one big piece or 3-4 smaller pieces. And you guys know I opted for the other one. I opted for the 3-4 smaller pieces. I did consolidate our talent here and ended up being a little bit of a biggie, where we included Abner Uribe, 75, 60, 30. The 30 control, y'all, it's just too scary. I just can't deal with it. And I just don't know that I'm ever going to feel confident in him in the major leagues going forward unless that changes. At 27, there's still a chance that he could improve, but he had the great jump with us, and I just didn't think it was going to go up at any point. If our guys couldn't get it from him, then I don't know who's going to. You know, in November 2025, it went up from 25 to 30. Great. And we got the repertoire change and all that. And remember, we got the big playoff run out of him. All of that was great, and I won't forget that. I know 140 whip doesn't sound great, but he came through in the clutch during the World Series run there with some big outs. But I just didn't really see where we were going to have another avenue for him on this team. So Abner Uribe was included. Jackson Kowar making $4 million this year. Oh, they ended up cutting him. Okay. I didn't know that he would be, because they actually when I put him in, he improved the deal, because then I did the make this work now, and it was lesser players than before. So I really thought that they were going to keep him, but he was slated to make $4 million. Actually, I think his scouting, did it come down, or just was it always this bad? Either way, I wasn't paying him $4 million. I understand why the Dodgers aren't. I did think that they might keep him though. Abel Bastidas, 60s down the line for his defense. That's the only thing that he's got going. He also just turned 24 6 days ago. He's a little defender in AAA, switch hitter. I don't really see a whole lot for Abel Bastidas. And then Angel Felipe was a big inclusion that moved the needle for them. 60, 55, 45 with 35 stamina, 99 to 100 in one on his velo. Coming off of a decent season, 53 innings with a 4.10 ERA, 133 whip. Got to get the whip in check, but he can be solid. He is 30 though. So, you know, he's not really in a growth stage anymore, but hard throwing reliever that can definitely give them some decent innings. He moved the needle on this deal. And then the last piece was Juan Ruiz, and he was that last inclusion. When I put Kowar in, they said, okay, we'll take this 30 overall guy, Juan Ruiz. And he's 45, 60, 50 with 35 stamina and 3 pitches. Like he could start. He was starting in AA and did pretty well, but it was all home run suppression as far as his ratings, and he didn't even do that well. He had a 1.2 homer 9 in AAA. So I don't know. I think he just kind of had a lucky year in AA. I didn't really buy it. They wanted him. They can have him. So we traded those 6 pieces for Wilman Diaz. Again, if you want to break it down and kind of cut the chaff, it's Curiel, Uribe, Felipe for Diaz. I think Bastidas and Kowar and Ruiz are kind of fluff, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. Cutting some of our talent down. We had like 42 guys in AA, AAA, I should say, not AA. And I was like, well, where am I going to put all these guys? You don't want to send guys back down. Got to cut some of them or include them in a package like this. So we did that. We got Diaz, and now he's our starting second shortstop. So those were the big trades that we did. Those 4 really kind of changed the makeup of things. It was a big, big period there where we kind of remade things. Then we look up from that, throw in all the arbitration deals that we did. Spencer Torkelson, $13.5 million. That's plus 5 off of what he was making from last year at $8.5 million. Riley Green jumped from 7 to 20, plus 13. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying that was a big, big, big price jump that we knew was coming for the absolute superstar who was just reeling off consistent 5-win seasons left and right. And this one, he even missed a bunch of games and still got there. So this could have been his huge breakout MVP type season had he not gotten hurt. Brooks Lee jumped from 5.5 to 9.1 mil. Jackson Jobe basically doubled his price point from 6.4 to 12.1. Evan Carter was making the league min, and now he's making 3.8. And then we did sign one extension this time, or not this time, but again on the mound, I should say, because last year we did an extension that was also on the mound when we signed Tariq Skubal to his deal, 4 years, 78 mil. And then this year we signed Ronnie Enriquez. He was ready for a deal. I got to be honest, I came down quite a bit off the numbers he was asking for, and he accepted it right away. And I'm wondering if maybe even I had a little bit more wiggle room, but I'm not too worried about this. It's a 5-year, $83 million deal. He was making 3.7 last year. He's going to make 8.9 this year. And then from there, it goes to 14, 18, 20, and then a team option for 23. That's not bad. He's not a traditional starter in terms of volume. His 164 last year was a big jump. It was the 30-inning jump and probably the max that we can expect. Although, did his stamina go up 5? Has he always been a 40 stam? I guess he has. Yeah, it dropped in 2023 when we got him from 45 to 40. So that's unfortunate. But anyway, at the 40, it still worked enough to be a quality starter. Well, it's funny I choose that word. I just mean in terms of quality work. But the quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs, is something that does elude him because he's a 4 or 5 inning guy consistently. But a 2.85 ERA last year, 2.69 this past season with 109 and 105 whips. I mean, it's excellent. My nerves are just that, like, he doesn't have one standout skill. 55, 50, 55 are his ratings. I guess, if things kind of fell off a little bit in the rotation, we could make him a big-time stopper. Although at that point, I don't want to be paying 18 and 20 mil for a stopper. I don't care how good you are. That's too much of a luxury to pay that much. But I think the 9 and 14 mil these next 2 years will be well worth it. As long as he stays consistent, we're pretty good for those last 2 years. The team option, probably not getting picked up unless he just doesn't miss a beat for 3 of these next 4 years. I'll give him one wiggle year, right? If one of these is kind of a dud, I guess unless it's 2031, because then that'd be the year before the team option. So if one of these next 3 is a little off, I'm not fully out, but if we start to see degradation this year and next, I'll look to move out from under Enriquez. But 583 feels fair. We got him and Skubal now locked up to long-term deals. Ashby came with a long-term deal. He has this year left and then a team option for 13 mil. The Brewers are paying 40% of this deal as well, so we feel really good about where we're at with Ashby. And then, of course, Gavin Stone is still on league min. CJ Weens, of course, on league min, and Jackson Jobe making 12 mil and still out with his strained hamstring. So now let's take a look at the team as we enter free agency. And this will kind of serve as that review, sans the guys that we moved, but we kind of looked at them as we talked about dealing them. Elpidio Perez, he won reliever of the year. Gabriel Arias, whatever, he was fine. Scherf, Vargas, Dingler, Frelick, and Carriol didn't play in the majors, so we didn't really have to do a big review on him. Angel Felipe, Jackson Coar, Abner Uribe, you're not really jonesing to see the stats of those relievers. I doubt it. So Now, as the team stands, we got Patrick Bailey as our starting catcher, and then Jin Song Sho as our backup. Now, he still has a really appealing bat that has +5 or 10 in every category. 10 in contact and then 5 everywhere else. At 26, okay, let's take a step forward this year. Let's see a couple of these 5s come to fruition, because he was really bad with us last year. 217 plate appearances, 61 WRC plus. So we need to see something from him as our backup. Over at first, we got Torque. He's a god. I love that Torque and Green are both excellent. That is really, really fun and pleases me greatly. Now, we have Isaac Pacheco backing him up, and he looks like he could become something pretty special. He had 22 plate appearances for us. It went splendidly, but it's 22 plate appearances. Let's not get hung up on it. He had a tough year in AAA. 347 plate appearances of a 73 WRC plus, and just a 101 the year before. So he's kind of been living off of hype and what his skills can be, as opposed to actually putting up a lot of numbers. But I look at him right now, and there's upside. Now, here's the part that I don't get. He's a 55 overall with a 75 upside, which is crazy good. Where the hell is that coming from? None of his categories have potential that has been unmet. Where's 20 points of overall coming from? I don't know. We will operate as though he is this guy, this 55 right now, and that's fine. I don't have him starting against righties, but he and Colton Hartman are going to share the DH spot. I think Hartman is going to start primarily against righties, and Pacheco will get in like every third game, and then against lefties, Pacheco will be the starting DH. For now, but this is not final. It's November 30th, for God's sakes. Then we have Brooks Lee coming in for his second year with us after a nice steady 3-win season. Switch hitting second baseman. Feel great about him. Should be excited to see what he can do this year. Oneil Cruz, remember, he had an excellent year in 2026, 4 wins. Hey, we stole him off the free agent wire. Let's go. Well, this year he came back to earth. 87 WRC plus, goes from 4 wins to 1. So there's that volatility, but at this price point, it doesn't matter. He makes $3 million this year, team option for 4 and 5 the next 2 years. I'd be so surprised if we don't pick those up. He would have to evaporate. So he'll be our starting third baseman. And then Wilman Diaz, of course, coming in as our starting shortstop right now. Evan Carter in left field, probably our best trade of the Sims so far. We bought low on him. I don't know what the Rangers were thinking when they traded him. And then I don't really know what then the Jays, I forgot he got traded. I thought it was from Rangers to Milwaukee to us. No, he's been moved all over the place. From the Rangers to the Jays, along with John Gray. Then from the Jays to the Brewers. And then from the Brewers to us. So I don't know. These teams, they were moving on way too quickly. Remember, we traded Nate Pearson, kind of sold high on, not kind of, we flat out sold high on him coming off of a solid season. And he's a free agent now this year, along with Dylan Smith, who was a prospect of moderate acclaim, nobody too special, but we were buying low on Carter. The market just was not valuing him where they should have in that premium high. And even though his stats haven't blown up as far as an offensive production, like he still has 45 home run and 45 gap. He's a contact eye sort of guy. But who cares? That's fine. I don't need him to hit a bunch of homers. His 17 this year is fine when you're putting up a 310 average and a 399 OBP. I'm all good. He scored 94 runs. He drove in 57. He hit those 17 homers I mentioned, 15 for 18 on the base paths, and excellent defense. Good for a 5-win campaign. The one fly in the ointment right now is that he's injury prone. That's kind of the one issue that we have. But as long as he stays healthy for, 130 games a year, I feel pretty good about it. And he did come off a pretty healthy year this past season. Mendoza in center, Sergio Mendoza, like Oneil Cruz, went from a huge breakout season when we won the World Series in 2026 to a big fallback this past year. And that's what you get with the more volatile skill profiles. Everything comes together. You can have that magical World Series win. Then as everyone kind of comes back to earth, maybe you have a challenge where you lose in the ALDS to the stupid Yankees. I'm not bitter, I promise. But yeah, he was still worth 2 wins because his defense in center is amazing. Great speed profile as well, 17 for 21 on the base paths, but only a 76 WRC plus. I do not hold him to this 120 WRC plus 5 WAR standard. If he can be a consistent, let's say 90 WRC plus, good for 3 wins, 2.5, 3 wins, I'll take that all day from Sergio Mendoza. He's 28. We still have this year and then a player option for $9 million next year. I bet he opts out of that. I think even if he has a repeat of this year or something close to it, I can still see him opting out. And if he does, we'll move on and it'll be fine. But for now, he's still starting for us in center field, and I like having him here. And then Riley Green in right, like I said, just churning out 5-win seasons like it's his job. And then Hartman, I mentioned, will be our DH against righties. And so there's the team as it stands right now. On the pitching side, we've got Gavin Stone as the de facto ace. I just think he's got a little bit more complete profile than Skubal to kind of get that number 1 spot. Skubal's been our workhorse stud, though. So I'll probably still give him opening day. You know, it's just that there's a little bit of that hierarchy thing that goes with it that maybe isn't just fully stat based. But when your guy is a leader, he's been there for a while, he piles up those innings, he still kind of draws the opening day, even if many people are like, well, he's their number 1, he's their first starter in the rotation, but he's not necessarily their ace. That could be the scenario here with Skubal and Stone. Not that Skubal is like way far off of Stone. I just think Stone could have a better year this year and kind of solidify himself as our true best starter. And I'm sure people are in their heads right now, y'all are saying, well, what about Enriquez? 2 straight seasons of sub-3 ERA. Isn't he our best starter? Well, he's up there, but I do value that volume. And that is going to be kind of a tiebreaker decider for me. And the guy that can consistently go 6-7, like Skubal and Stone, they get a little bit of edge over Enriquez. But hey, those 3 as our top 3, I feel great about that. Weens coming in at 4, Ashby at 5, and then Jackson Jobe holding the 6th spot right now because we usually put 6 in the offseason rotation just to see what our 5 and then our best backup looks like. And then in the bullpen, we've got some other guys who could maybe start if they needed to, if they got pushed into it. Wilmer Flores possibly could. He's coming off a nice 5-start run with us where he put up a 3.55 ERA and a 107 whip. It was 25 innings, though. He was great in a swingman's role at AAA. He's got 45 stamina. Franklin DaCosta, he could start. I really don't see us doing that, though, because his stuff would drop down to 45. But it is at least on the profile, so I will mention it. Emiliano Teodo, I mean, he's got borderline starter, which, by the way, I just learned that that's actually a negative. I was operating under the notion that if a reliever had borderline starter, that was a positive for their profile, because then if you put them in the rotation, they could start, right? Like this was giving you permission to use them as a starter, and so they won't get punished if you just put a bullpen guy in there. If it says current bullpen, then you probably shouldn't put them into the rotation. But if it says starter or borderline starter, you can put them in. But apparently borderline starters get a big penalty because they're missing something. So the game not only penalizes them for having 40 stamina and 40 control, which in itself is a tough combo, but then there's an additional borderline starter penalty. So we probably wouldn't want to use Teodo. Miguel Guerrero, who we just brought over on the waiver, has full-on starter for his role. So 55 potential control, 50 right now with 40 stamina. I can definitely work with that. So honestly, if I'm ranking them, I think it's Guerrero, Flores, Teodo, DaCosta that we would rank as potential starters. I don't think Mosqueda, well, actually Mosqueda, he could. He's 35 stamina, but straight 55s down the line. They say he could be a starter. And he wouldn't lose any stuff. So yeah, let's put him in the mix too. He would rate over DaCosta for me. And then Almonte. See, Almonte has the current bullpen. And you might look at him and say, well, he has 35 stamina like those other guys. Great 3-pitch arsenal, 65, 50, 55. Why doesn't he get the starter tag? Honestly, I don't know what separates him. I don't know why he comes up short. But he does, and for me, that's enough. The game indicator is enough for me to say, hey, I'm not putting Jonathan Almonte in the rotation. So that's the team right now. I feel pretty good about this. All that movement, and we come out with $35.5 million of money available. Again, dust was going to settle and probably put us maybe with a couple mil or maybe a couple mil light. If I'd made no moves and just done the arbitration and let Adames go, I think it would have been somewhere between the -2 to +4 range, somewhere in there. All those movements we did, all that movement we did with all those trades, and now we got about 36 mil. That's a decent bit of money to play with. Question becomes, what do we need? What do we want to spend that on? If you look at the rankings, there's 3 red rankings that stand out: catcher, shortstop, and then it says RP. Like, I don't give a shit about that one because I think our relievers are fine. Diaz, we just brought in. I'm rolling with him. If something popped up where we could upgrade it, maybe, because we could put him back in AAA for a bit more seasoning. But as it stands right now, I'm okay bringing him in as our starting shortstop. Catcher, obviously, we don't agree that Show's even our number one. We've got Bailey as our number one. He's a good enough catcher for me right now. I will still look to improve if I can, but the 60 ability switch hitter with high work ethic, I'm cool with it. I want more than a 70 WRC plus, of course, but as it stands, I'm okay at catcher. It's upgradable, but it's not a must-have big need for us. So I'm curious where we could spend some money. And let's look at some free agents here as we wrap up this episode. Logan Gilbert is coming available from the Mariners. So he wins the World Series and then gets to go see what a new team might be interested in paying him. You know, he's a big-time control artist. 70 control, 55 movement, 50 stuff, 210 innings. So that workhorse, high volume, high control guy, doesn't walk, doesn't make mistakes, can dominate. Christian Javier, kind of more in that Ronnie Enriquez. Actually, no, he's got 55 stamina. Wow. I would have thought he'd been more like 40, 45, and I was going to compare him to Ronnie Enriquez. Now, he did only throw 164 innings last year, so it was an Enriquez-esque season, but he dropped 203 the year before, and then 188, 181, 198. So he's been putting up the volume. So no, he's a cut above that. Jung-Hoo Lee, who just came over in real life to play with the Giants this year, he's not coming over in our universe until 2028. But he went and just, oh my God, he was dominating the KBO. 4 years of the last 5, he's led the league in WAR. So he's just been unbelievable there. And so I understand why he stayed. Comes over with 70 contact, 70 gap, 50 home run, 55 I, and 80 avoid K. Strong base running, high work ethic and intelligence, strong corner outfield with center field capability, thanks to 65 range. What does he want? Okay, he wants a huge deal for one. But the first year is only 13 mil. Here's the thing. If I'm going to work anything with Jung-Hoo Lee, the grandson of Wind, there's no way it's going to be 8-9 years. There's just no way. He's 29. I can't do it. But I wouldn't mind maybe like a big 4-year deal. Because I don't think Mendoza has to be the unquestioned starter. This is a guy with 40, 45 contact. So, like, he's susceptible. We saw what he just did this year. He could go into the utility outfielder role and kind of push Parker Meadows. I mean, it could happen. And then we would start Riley Green in center. Or Carter, to be honest. Like, I like the interchangeability of our outfield. And then sign Lee. And Lee himself, like I said, could play center. So we wouldn't have to worry about that. So I think Lee could be an option. Even though outfield isn't our biggest need, he's just a good player on the right side of 30. Ketel Marte's 34. I'm just not interested. Because unless he wants like a 1-2 year deal and he wants 5 and we lose a pick, I can't do it. Just not the best use of our money. I just think getting Jung-Hoo Lee would make more sense. Because he's not even a good infielder either, defensively. And so even if we were going to play that angle and say, yeah, second short is where we could make an upgrade, Ketel Marte doesn't really help that because he's a mediocre defender. Then you got Jake Fraley, who has developed nicely. Huge fan of Jake Fraley in real life. Love to see that he's popped off here in this universe. I'm surprised he doesn't have fragile health or fragile injury proneness, because 117, 108, 70, 11 games. Oh, actually, the 11 game season was spent in AAA, so never mind on that. Maybe it's just been platooning and not injuries. It has. Okay, well, that would explain why he hasn't had his injury outlook changed. Never mind. I assumed it was injuries. Oh, look. Shosei Watanabe. He's back on the market, y'all. He went and had a nice 3-win season in Houston this past year. Okay, good for him. I am scouting him. I just want to see where he's at. But I'm not bringing him back. Don't worry. Even though he plays second base like Marte, he's not good at it. And he's 31. So, no, he's going to want some big deal. 6 years. Nope. I do still want to see where he's at ratings-wise, though, so I am scouting him. Mackenzie Gore, a favorite of mine in base game sims the last 2 years. I've had him on a lot of teams. He looks okay, but doesn't look like an upgrade for us. Edwin Diaz, get the trumpets going. Ooh, 105, 65, 55. God, he's awesome. The way I got him in Montreal was kind of accidental. He had just lasted too long. It was like late January, early February, and he was still on the market. And I lowballed him with an $11 million offer. He took it, and the rest was history. And that was at the peak of the Narcos trumpet song. And so we played the shit out of that in my Montreal series. I loved it. I still think that song is amazing. Gets me going. Adames, there he is. Oh, Ajuma Maneno. It doesn't have the little tilde, so I don't know if it's Maneno. But this was an international guy who came over from South Africa. He's interesting, for sure. Only a 40 home run power, but everything else is awesome. 60 contact, 75 gap, 65 high, 70 avoid K. Huge speed, but only decent defense. 50 range, 60 air, 55 arm. So he has to play a corner. High adaptability and work ethic, and he's a spark plug, and he's 24. So there are a lot of positives. Here's the thing. I am scouting him. If he signs before the 3 weeks, I'm letting him go. Now, I know I said that exact same thing with Mendoza, and then one of y'all commented, hey, you should probably get that guy with 70 range, you dumb idiot. Although you said it way nicer than that. You could have just said the dumb idiot thing, though, because, yeah, I should have never been just kind of dismissing a 70 range outfielder who only wanted, what did he make his first year? His first year, he made 13 mil. Oh, yeah, we front-loaded it. 13, 10, 9, 9. So, yeah. You were right to critique me on that. But Maneno is a little bit of a different story because he's a corner without power and he doesn't play great defense. I'd rather just go for Jung-Hoo Lee, I think. Even though he's 5 years older. I think he's just a more complete player. We're still going to have to do like a 4 or 5 year deal with either one of them. And so, I don't know. It might be a situation where Jung-Hoo Lee just isn't working, the negotiations, and Maneno's still available, then I would pivot to him. But as it stands right now, I think if I'm going to go for the outfielder, it's going to be Lee over Maneno. Danny Jansen behind the dish. I think we were targeting him, what was it, last year or 2 years ago? But now he's a 60 ability. I think he was a 65 back then. I just don't think he's a big enough upgrade. Basically, for me to chase a catcher via free agency, they have to be 70 ability or 65 with some hitting. Otherwise, just stick with what we've got. Anthony Santander, Eduardo Rodriguez, Matthew Boyd. I'm not clicking on all of them because I don't think we're interested. Reese McGuire, he's got 65, but he can't really hit. He is a captain. It still comes up short of what I'm looking for if I'm going for catcher. Dalton Varsho can catch, but he's really a corner outfielder. Or a center fielder. He can play center. He's a great fielder. Spark plug, can hit a little bit. I always like Varsho. Varsho would be a consolation, like a secondary piece that we might turn to, but I'm gonna get a full scout. I'm not gonna jump him or anything. Trent Grisham, I mean, he's a good defender. Shane Bieber, Caleb Ferguson. None of these guys really jumping out. They also don't fit the needs. Willie Castro, former Tiger. He can pick it a bit. He could be our utility guy, but he wants more than Arias, so never mind. Arias was better for cheaper. And again, Arias was not expensive. I didn't get rid of him because $6 million was too much to pay. It's just that I didn't show this when I was going through the team, but we're bringing in Gage Workman, and he's worse. Don't get me wrong. But he has enough defense to replicate Arias defensively, and his offense probably won't be too far from it, even though Arias is better. But for a $6 million difference, I'll just take Workman from the minors. If you compare the two, it's +5 contact for Arias, +5 gap for Workman, +5 home run for Arias, equal I, and +10 avoid K. And then defensively, it's 65s down the line for Arias. It's 60, 65, 55, 60 for Workman. So he's worse. He is worse, but not $6 million worse, or 5.5, whatever, because it's a league min versus $6 million. So that was my thinking there, was we'll just go for Workman. Plus he was a minor league free agent, so we had to put him on the 40 or lose him. And even though we could have lost him and I wouldn't have freaked out, I actually had a role for the switch hitter, so I figured why not? We'll put him on the team. So for now, he is going to make the team. So let's go ahead and wrap up there. A little off-season kind of setup. We've done a lot. I think we could still maybe look for trades that maybe involve a catcher or a middle infielder. But Jung-Hoo Lee, what do y'all think? I'm very curious because this is probably the one big free agent move I would be interested in. Nothing else really jumps out. So it's kind of Jung-Hoo Lee or maybe some supplemental pickups. The problem is, or I don't even want to say problem, the issue in terms of signing free agents is, where do they go? Who are we getting rid of to fit them? We already have 14 hitters and we have 13 pitchers. So we're actually one heavy on the pitching side. So I just don't know where we are going to make the moves. We did consolidate or go down a little bit in some of our relievers who are out of options, but we still have 4. Almonte, DaCosta, Flores, and Mosqueda are all out of options. So we're still kind of tight there. I think we had 5 or 6. So we didn't move the needle too much on that, but we did cut it a little bit. So yeah, curious your thoughts on everything. Do you like the trades? Do you think they're bad? Feel free to critique, by the way. It doesn't always have to be, oh, that was the greatest trade ever. You can say, I wouldn't have done that for this, that, and the other reason. Very interested to hear. But next episode, I will get into free agency, into the international market, and we should be on the cusp of spring training. So get your thoughts in shortly after you watch this, if you watch it within a couple days of going up, because I will get to moving forward here in free agency probably tomorrow or the next day. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Talk to y'all later. Peace.